Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we are reviewing The French Dispatch. Directed by Wes Anderson, starring Bill Murray, Owen Wilson, Benicio del Toro, Léa Seydoux, Timothée Chalamet, Frances McDormand, Adrien Brody, and many, many more. Before we go any further though, if you could be a dear, hit that like button and hit that subscribe button as well. It really does mean a lot to me. It helps the channel massively, and we thank you if you do. The French Dispatch tells the tale of the last 3 stories printed in a magazine owned by the character of Bill Murray. The film almost plays out as a love letter to print format. And as you might have guessed from the trailers, it is absolutely Wes Anderson at his most Wes Anderson. This is a very zany and outlandish movie. This is really Wes Anderson on a blockbuster scale. This movie was beautiful to behold. The constant change of colour palettes, the change of the frame rate between scenes, the never-ending tracking shots, the cuts to animation out of absolutely nowhere. There really isn't many films like this. This really is quite wholly unique to itself. Each frame seems to work like a mechanised watch. You can see each little gear turning the next one to deliver something into the picture. It even seems to happen between scene transitions. It won't just sort of cut to black and come back in. You'll literally see the sets being built before your eyes. The old one will be taken away by random people and then a new one will be brought in by random people. It's almost got that theatre production level to it, but yet it really worked. I complain so often about formulaic plots and cliches and stereotypical characters, and this movie just wasn't that at all at any given moment. This film was an enormous breath of fresh air to cinema. This lets you see a whole new aspect to cinema, how cinema can be made rather than just these constant washout big money blockbusters. You can get a little bit creative, a little bit artsy with it, and you can still tell a very poignant story with some great performances throughout. Every character, every set design, every plot line was hugely interesting and fascinating to me and felt original as well. I never at any moment felt like I knew where this was going. I actually want to go and see The French Dispatch again just to see what I didn't see, if that makes sense. There is so much going on at any given time through this movie, and it clearly isn't just done by accident. There are clues in the film. They mention how the past is in black and white, the future is in colour, but scenes will literally change between black and white and colour within seconds of itself. I want to try and dig a little deeper and see what's really trying to be said there. Is there another level to this movie that I just didn't really latch onto? I think there is. I find it hard to believe that every single one of these little gimmicks, if you will, are just there to be gimmicks. It's so finely tuned to do exactly what it's doing that I think it's there on purpose, 100%. It's also very funny. I really didn't expect it to be anywhere near as funny as it actually was. Wes Anderson is very quirky and off the wall. It doesn't always make for a gut-busting laugh every single time. And nothing here was the most funniest thing you've ever seen, but it was really clever comedy. It was funny comedy. Some of it was almost nostalgic. There was almost Charlie Chaplin-esque routines done. I think you can even see inspiration from things like Monty Python and so on, you know. It's that sort of quick wit humour that's very dry and unexpected. It's not going to be the typical punchline that you see coming. The performances throughout were absolutely incredible. These are some of my favourite performances of this year. Adrien Brody was on fire in this movie. I found his performance to be so entertaining, enjoyable, charismatic, charming. He's such a good performer. I really like Adrien Brody, and it's roles like this that prove my point that that man is damn good at what he does. I really enjoyed Benicio del Toro and Léa Seydoux together as well. They have a really intriguing and heartfelt chemistry with each other, and that's really hard to deliver when the actual pair have very little dialogue with each other. A lot of their relationship is physical, not just in a sexual sense, but the fact that the way they communicate seems to be by looking at each other. They growl at each other, they slap each other's hands away from each other. It's really well done to deliver that and make me actually care about them when they're not in it for that long. and there really isn't that much depth to them. Well done to the movie for prioritising what was important about the characters and letting the performances deliver the rest. I also need to take my hat off and apologise to Timothee Chalamet. I gave him a fair bit of stick in my Dune review. Fuck am I talking about? I gave him a fair bit of stick in my Dune review in regards to his performance being a little bit too mopey teenager and him constantly doing that and me getting a little bit tired of the routine. Here, ironically, the role really was that of a moody teenage boy, and I was concerned that Chalamet is just going to do the exact same thing yet again. But he doesn't. He was incredibly funny in this. He might have been the funniest character, if you ask me. He's also incredibly charming, endearing, sweet. You kind of just pity him a little bit because he's so clearly this child who thinks he has the world figured out and clearly doesn't, not at all. I thought this was such a robust performance from him and exactly what I've been asking to see from him. So, well done, Timothée Chalamet. You've earned my respect. I could sit here and talk about the performances all day. There are so many, even tiny, minuscule roles that barely have any lines of dialogue are played by really famous names that you will recognise, and that is fun to look out for throughout the film. But even in those small moments, these actors are absolutely giving it their A game. The one that really stood out to me in regards to the smaller performances was Tilda Swinton. Wow, I haven't seen anything like that from Tilda Swinton in a while, and she was so captivating, energetic, enjoyable, just a really fun character for her to sink her teeth into. Pardon the pun, because the character ironically has buck teeth. But, you know, I love that. I just love seeing actors do what they do and letting them knock your socks off. And this film does that in spades. However, I do have a slightly small complaint with The French Dispatch. My issue with The French Dispatch is that despite all the bells and whistles attached to its style and its design, it can severely lack substance in regard to its own narrative, except for the 3 stories that it's choosing to deliver to you. You don't actually spend that much time in The French Dispatch with the likes of Bill Murray in this current climate, with an understanding as to what we're going back towards. I could have done with feeling slightly more attached to the cause there. And for the investment that you have into each of these stories, it's very stop-start, and it can make it a little hard to know where you jump on board at each time. It can also make you wary to not want to latch onto characters because, well, being short stories inside of a story, they are going to end. These characters are going to have a start, a middle, and end, and then we're going to move on to something else narratively. That can be a little bit jarring and almost aimless in a sense. Some people are not going to like this movie at all on its narrative structure. I think it's also fair to say that the film almost out-quirks itself. It becomes a little bit self-indulgent on its own gimmicks. That wasn't necessarily the case for me, but it was starting to get to a point around the end when we started going into hand-drawn animation, when I thought, oh, come on, this isn't the time to start pulling new tricks. This is the time to start bringing this to a close now. It does come across a little bit too hell-bent and indulgent on its own flavouring. I'm going to give The French Dispatch a 9 out of 10. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. It was a real breath of fresh air against traditional cinema. It got my creative juices flowing, just taking it all on board. It's a beauty to look at. It's hugely unique and memorable. I'm not going to forget this film anytime soon. I really want to go and see it again to just take that further, deeper dive into it. It might even get the 10 if I did do that. But at the moment, having only watched it the one time, I sadly can't give it that 10 out of 10 as much as I want to, because I can't blindly pretend that it didn't go off without any hitches anywhere. And something else I really enjoyed about this movie was that this is the first time I have gone to the cinema with my own mum in genuinely God knows how many years. We never do that. That's not a thing. We have polar opposite taste in movies. Actually, the last time we went to the cinema together was for Passengers, that Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence movie, which was surprisingly okay. But here for The French Dispatch, this was a film that both of us were excited about and were really interested in getting our teeth sunk into. And it was a really nice experience just to do that with my mum for the first time in genuinely God knows, probably like 6 or 7 years, I'd have thought. Thank you for watching this review. Please be sure to leave a like and hit the subscribe button as well. And be sure to leave a comment. What did you think of The French Dispatch? And more importantly, what do you think of Wes Anderson? What is your favourite Wes Anderson movie? What is your least favourite Wes Anderson movie? Let me know in the comment section below. Take care, and I look forward to seeing you on the next review.